Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today for this video, we are going to look at my lueddemanniana cross with Yafeng Nice Girl. This orchid was one of the first few orchids I got that has lueddemanniana in its parentage. So when I first got it, gosh, this is probably, I want to say 5 years ago. I may have to go back to my old videos to figure out when exactly I purchased this. But this was definitely purchased when I was still back in New York. So it definitely has been at least 4, if not 5 years. Anyway, when I first got it, it felt like such a treasure to me because I had always wanted a lueddemanniana orchid. But I couldn't find any good lueddemanniana at the time, so I went with a cross. So this one came about, and it wasn't expensive either. I think it was maybe $35, and I was really pleasantly surprised by its fragrance because it's also very sweet, very honey smell like. Even though this is not a pure lueddemanniana species orchid, it has enough of that characteristic that I was looking after, that was seeking, right? That concentric circle pattern on the flowers, and then also the magenta or fuchsia color on the lip, as well as the tiny little hair fuzzy lip that I really enjoy seeing on orchid flowers. Currently, this orchid is in a inorganic mixture, and this orchid also has it is in a container that has drainage holes at the bottom. And as you can see, this orchid is growing kind of horizontally already. By the way, if you don't know, Phalaenopsis orchid will always have this tendency to grow pendant, to grow downwards. So it's not strange to see this orchid growing almost, sideways. So what I'm going to do, and I did, after this orchid's bloom cycle is finished, I will have to repot this orchid. For one, to adjust the orchid position, the plant position, to be more upright than now, the horizontal position, and then to pot the area roots back into the media, back into the container, because it's just taking too much space, and I have to put this orchid all the way on the very top shelf of the grow space. And even that, every time I try to handle this orchid for watering, for cleaning, whatever, I get really nervous because I don't want to damage the aerial roots. So to save myself some headache and some stress after this blooming cycle, I told myself I have to repot this orchid. Even though this orchid is performing and it's doing well, at some point I just need to repot this orchid, and I think the timing is right after its bloom this time around. Okay, so this orchid's flower has fragrance, obviously, because of lueddemanniana. I don't have Yafeng Nice Girl in my collection, so I don't really know if Yafeng Nice Girl is also fragrant or not. But my guess is Yafeng Nice Girl also is a fragrant orchid. But the smell reminds me of the lueddemanniana that I have smelled from my friend's collection. So obviously it inherits the fragrance from its parent. And the flower itself also feels really substantial. It's thick enough. And also the background, the white color, actually is milky white. It's not the typical translucent white, which I also enjoy quite a bit. And here is just to give you an idea of how long the aerial roots has gotten, that I just really, as much as I love seeing roots, this is a little too much and too long for my liking, so I really have to give it a repot. If you didn't understand what I was talking about, now you kind of see why I have to. Okay, so like I said, this was the first lueddemanniana cross that I ever gotten. But recently in my channel, I have also talked about another orchid, and in case you missed that orchid video, I am including a few photos and some footage of that orchid here in this video for you to see. And you can see here, it also has that circle pattern on the flower, but because this orchid has venosa in its parentage, this is a cross between lueddemanniana and venosa, which is also another species. So this one is a primary hybrid. Because of venosa, you see the outer edge of the flower has this yellow. That's from venosa. And also the flower, the shape of the flower also is slightly different. It takes more from venosa than lueddemanniana, but thankfully the circle pattern as well as the magenta color from lueddemanniana still remain. And I really like that about this orchid. This orchid is also fragrant and is also a sequential bloomer. So when this orchid's spike is green, even though no flower, no buds, you want to keep it. I will keep it for as long as I can. I would only cut the spike off when it's becoming yellow or dried up. Otherwise, next blooming cycle, it may continue to elongate its flower spike to give you more buds, to give you more flowers. In terms of the growing method or the setup, this orchid is in a cup without drainage hole, and the medium I use is sphagnum moss. So I kind of just call this method moss no hole method. In contrary, the orchid previously, the Yafo Nice Girl and lueddemanniana cross, that is grown in inorganic media with drainage holes at the bottom. This method, moss no hole method, the biggest trick, or I guess the number one tip, is the moss needs to be very loosely put into the media so that in between moss and the roots there is enough air circulation for basically a quicker wet dry cycle. The moss cannot be packed too tightly, so that's the number one key. And for watering, you either give it a set amount or you soak it really well and drain out the water completely until there is no more drips. Sometimes after that's done, in an hour or two, you should go back to the orchid and check and see if there is any excess water pooling at the bottom due to gravity. And if there is any more excess water, you want to also dump that out as well. So that's how you water this type of orchid in this no-hole moss setup. Overall, lueddemanniana crosses are really good orchids to have. If you don't have any, I encourage you to get one and try it out for yourself. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!